I'm here with actor David Alan Basche, who, if you've turned on your television in the last, God, 10, 20 years, you've seen him. Maybe not 20, but
Well,
close, right?
almost. Yeah, maybe.
We're getting up there. 15.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
split
go
the
with that.
difference.
Let's go with that.
So, talk a little bit about when you first decided that you wanted to pursue acting as a career.
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I was lucky because I knew when I was a kid. I was sort of a troubled kid, and someone in elementary school made the mistake of saying you should audition to play Tom Sawyer in the school play, because he's kind of a trickster, and they gave me the role of Tom Sawyer, and that was it. I mean, I was in 6th grade, so I was 10, I guess, and I heard the roar of that crowd, and
That
thought,
was it?
Oh, I like that attention, yeah.
At 10 years old, did your parents take you seriously that you wanted
Well,
to do it as a career?
my mom was always supportive. She was a single mom. My dad died when I was a kid, actually when I was 6, and so part of why I was sort of a troubled kid between 6 and 10 was that I had a lot of anger, and I really was looking for some attention that I was missing in my life. And the good news is there were some folks in my high school, junior high school and high school theater departments that were good men, kind men, taught me what it means to be a father. They had their own kids, and so I learned about life while I was learning about theater. And my mom was always supportive, even though she was scared. And I remember when I came home for my first semester at Emerson College, I came back from Boston, and I guess I must have left a copy of Backstage newspaper on the table. Back then it was in print, not just digital, And she had read it. She had this terrified look on her face.
Yeah.
And she said, there's still time to go to law school. But after that, she said, okay, never mind. I'll help you any way I can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did enduring a tragedy that young in your life help when you were trying to mine an emotion, whether it be anger or upset?
Sure. I mean, so much of theater is therapy anyway, and that's sometimes not so good if you're a sort of private theater coach or you're at a studio, and sometimes there's things get a little wonky. I always kind of I was very lucky. I studied with Michael Howard and some people at the Michael Howard studio, and some other good acting coaches, and they were very straightforward, and it wasn't theater as therapy, listen, if you have some pain and you're willing to access it, may as well use it for something good. Yeah. Being willing to access it is kind of the key, and there were times in my career for sure that I had trouble. I was like, no, I mean, I'm famously, I remember, famous to me. You don't know this, but to me, famously, I did a play at the Hartford Stage Company. I grew up outside near Hartford in West Hartford, and I did a really interesting, very infrequently done A.R. Gurney play called The Golden Age. And it was a 3-character play. It was me and Eve Holbrook and Elizabeth Frowns. And I think Elizabeth Frowns had just won a Tony, and Hartford Stage had won a Tony, and I wasn't up to it. And this character has to want one thing more than anything in the entire world. And I wasn't able to put my guard down as an actor and be vulnerable and admit that one thing I wanted was to see my father again or talk to him again, and use that as a way into the character and the play. And the reviews said so. I didn't read them until the end, but I knew it. I mean, the reviews were like, and Basche is not up to the task. And I was like, you're right. Yeah.
Did that discourage you at all right off the bat, or did you kind of, since you already knew
it was
in
kind
your
of
heart that you weren't?
It was a kick in the ass. I was a little farther along the road already. Far enough along the road that me and Eve Holbrook and Elizabeth Frowns were a good thing for, and it was actually Hartford Theater Works. I had just finished Romeo and Juliet at Hartford Stage, and a Dybbuk that Tony Kushner adapted at Hartford Stage. So, and this was now a lead role, and I was discouraged with myself in a way. I was disappointed in myself, but I tried not to beat up on myself. I tried to be compassionate with myself, and then do a little more work on, what's up with that? And part of that work was personal and,
Right.
therapy and am I still holding on to pain from my childhood?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that about? And why am I still scared of it? Right? And this was many years ago, so I think I was still in the throes of kind of trying to be my own man. And but it didn't discourage me professionally.
Mm-hmm.
It if anything, it kind of lit a fire under my ass because I did not want to see reviews like that again.
Yeah.
I had never been an actor who phoned it in. I'm very proud of the fact that when I show up on a stage, I give 110% every time.
Mm-hmm.
But I was limited by myself. I was in my own way, and so it really fired me up to get out of my own way and not do that again. So.
When you first started, you did do a lot of theater. Was that your primary goal, or did you want to eventually transition?
No, I wanted to be George Clooney. Everybody when I do that. I don't know. I guess so. Some people see it. No, listen, I think a lot of actors starting out tell themselves, I'm going to be the biggest movie star in the world. Mm-hmm. Or they tell themselves, whether it's true or not, well, I just want to be a working actor. Mm-hmm. I just want to do theater and make a living.
Yeah.
And I was somewhere in between. I was very ambitious when I was younger, and it really served me well. The theater that I got to do, I was also very lucky, and I always admit that. The theater that I got to do when I was younger really helped my career. I did a lot of theater that no one's ever heard of in the Lower East Side, and some basements and churches and things that no one's ever should have seen. But right. Thanks for coming anyway, yeah, right. You two people that came. But then I got to do a play called Snake Bit with Naked Angels, and again a 4-character play, and so and a very kind of a showy role. And that got me a lot of notice, and sort of headed to LA to do TV pilots and things. And similarly, that was back to back with Visiting Mr. Green, which was a 2-character play, and it was just me and Eli Wallach. And everybody came to see Eli, and there was nothing else to look at but him and me.
Right. So,
so
there was definitely some notice taken, right?
I think so. Yeah. And I was very lucky. I don't think there's any one break in any career, but there are little opportunities that add up, and those 2 pieces of theater, of New York theater, were huge for me, and they led to a lot of TV work.
And was there any apprehension about going out to the West Coast?
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I was really scared. I went out to do that first TV pilot, which failed and went nowhere, by the way, along with a bunch of other pilots.
Yeah. Which happens to everyone.
Yeah, listen, if you're lucky enough, you get to do lots of pilots, and most of them go nowhere, and maybe a few of them get on the air, and you can eke out a career. I've been much more lucky than many. I have those failed pilots, but I have 4 or 5 series I've been on that have lasted a year or 2 or 3 the Exodus was 5 years. I mean, so that was, I think, almost 70 episodes. So I've been really lucky, and. Yeah.
You did collect on the New York calling card of actors by being on Law and Order SVU.
Yes, naturally. Yes.
And have you done horror film? That's usually the other one.
Oh, really? No, I want to do a horror.
That's what I say in every interview.
I love it. Well, keep saying that. Put that on the universe. I want to do a horror movie.
Yeah.
I want to get cut in half or dismembered with some blunt instrument or something.
There you go.
Yeah. For sure.
Casting directors.
Submarine movie and horror movie. Everyone, be aware.
Little horror movie.
I can walk backwards really well.
Yeah.
I can not pay attention to what's behind me or what's behind that door when everyone's yelling, no!
Well, I'm glad I got you before you're getting dismembered and everything else. Make for a really terrible interview if it was just your head and an arm leaning on the table.
Would have to just be a tighter frame.
That's right,
Depending on which half of me you got. Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
Hopefully the upper half.
Well, hopefully.
It's not that kind of interview,
Hey, listen, all right.
So, you did speak about the X's, which you were on for 5 years. Did you ever feel at a point you had to work even harder to keep things fresh in your performance because you had been doing it so long, as opposed to doing your different episodic work, going in for one and done?
Well, a little. I mean, it's a good question. I think comedy and drama are a little different, and I think that in that regard, and I think that on a drama, and I have friends that have been on a long-running drama, and yes, I was able to be on SVU, and I know Mariska. I imagine that with that long of a run and that many stories, you have to find some way to kind of keep things fresh for yourself. Comedy is a little bit easier because it changes very quickly, and sitcom especially, even though there's not that many of them anymore, it's one of my favorite forms of entertainment because we shot the X's in front of a live studio audience. We would say a line, and if the joke was a 5 or a 6, the writers would run in and try to write a 6 or 7 or an 8 or a 9. And every once in a while, as actors, after halfway through the first season, when we all got comfortable with each other, Wayne Knight would say something that wasn't anywhere close to what was in the script, and the rest of us were off. We would go off on tangents, and a lot of that made it into the show over the years.
Keeps it fresh too.
And so in that way, you can keep it fresh, and that way you can come up with new things. While still respecting the writers on the show and the director and what you're being asked to do. So comedy, I think, is a little easier, yeah.
Was that one of your first comedic roles, being on a show like that, or had you?
No. Happily, some of the pilots that I did were comedies. There was one. It was meant. Friends had just gone off the air, and it was meant to be sort of the replacement for Friends. And some of the people have kids, though, and it was called Some Guys, and it was quite good, I thought. That was really funny, and then there was a bunch of other kind of pilots and sitcom stuff after that, and yeah, I would still love to do a sitcom. I mean,
do you feel that some of the sitcoms that you did that were not brought to series, do you think they would have a better chance today with the extended amount of platforms and huge audiences?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what there's kind of a whole network based on showing pilots that never made it to series.
Really?
And yeah, I think there's like a network that shows that were canceled after just a few episodes, and or the pilots that never made it to air. And yeah, I think there's some that would be great on Hulu today. Yeah, for sure.
Do you find it more exciting of a time to be an actor because there are so many more platforms and so many more ways to put your product out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's different than it was when it was just ABC, NBC, CBS, and then Fox and the CW. What was that? Nobody ever heard of that.
Yeah, that was like WB at the time.
Yeah, right. Although I was very lucky to do a show on ABC with Alan Ball and then Three Sisters on NBC, and I was lucky to kind of get into that network system very early. My wife is on Orange Is the New Black. She was just on 7 years for Netflix, and we watched how Netflix changed the course of how people watch entertainment. So it's a very exciting time, and we've produced a little bit, she and I, and have a few shows in development, and I have sort of a kids-based thing that a friend wrote that we've come on board and are hopefully pitching to some streamers. I wrote a sort of it's kind of a combination of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid meets Blind Spot meets The Hangover.
Blind Spot, which you were also on.
Yeah, I was also on Blind Spot, and Bull and Blue Bloods and Better Things. I guess it has to start with a B.
Yeah, that's right. For your last name, that's how they know how to hire
you.
That's right. They just
it's got a B.
their
we call
Rolodex.
Call H.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. We want to take that to YouTube and talk to all the different platforms. And Quibi is a really interesting thing now. Mobile only, and yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
Do you think that with you spoke about your wife being on Orange Is the New Black? Do you feel that way to drop shows and have only 10 episodes and drop them all at once is a good way to do things, or are you a fan of kind of doing week to week for 22 episodes?
I think it's great. I mean, we met folks just a week ago that said, I've watched all of Orange, and I'm like looking at my watch, I'm like, how? It's only been out for 2 days. Like, how did you watch all of it in 2 days? So it's cool, and people love to binge, and I do too. There's shows where I watched Bosch on Amazon Prime. Like I read all those books, and I watched Bosch in like a week and a half, which for me was fast. And some people some people can have a bag of chips in their cupboard for 6 months and have a few here or there, and other people are like, I don't
gotta have it all at once.
I think it's a great option to have, and I kind of do also miss what we used to call destination television. It was like you had to show up on Thursday. I mean, when I was on Three Sisters, we were on Thursday nights between, I think, Friends and West Wing, and it was a hell of a night, and a lucky time slot that we had for a while, and that was kind of fun because everyone was like, it was must-see TV Thursday,
right.
And I think that's a product of a bygone era, so to speak, but I wonder if any of the streamers will try to recreate that.
Yeah.
I think they will. I think Netflix or Starz or Epix or Hulu or someone is going to create something where they only drop a few things at a certain time. And maybe HBO did that with Big Little Lies. They didn't drop everything.
Right.
And Game of Thrones. So that's sort of the closest that we have to that still is with HBO.
The other good thing about Netflix is they could theoretically pick up the X's, and then then you have a whole new plethora.
I love that canceled shows are canceled for like 10 minutes and then they pop up somewhere else.
Or shows that air on, like Schitt's Creek was on Pop that
right.
We've heard of the show,
Eugene
but then you watch it and
hilarious.
it's like, the whole show is amazing.
Yeah, sure.
Or All American, that show on the CW that didn't really do great on the CW, but once they put it on Netflix, it boosted the ratings.
Yeah, and listen, it used to be that ABC used to make content for CBS, and WB would make content and sell it to anybody else, and those licensing fees got expensive for the networks, and they said, well, we're gonna have ABC Productions make the show for ABC, and then we buy it for ourselves for cheap, and we make more money.
Yeah.
And now they're realizing that I think the licensing fees in streaming can be a little more manageable. So if you can acquire something from someone else, put it on your platform.
Right.
So it's good for actors. It's good for content creators. I think things get a little bit more of a life.
Being a two-performer household, how have you guys learned to juggle that, especially parents?
Two-performer house. That's
That sounds. Yeah. That's.
Yeah. You get arrested for that in certain states. Okay.
Probably not anymore in this country.
Yeah, that's right.
For anything.
It's all fair game. It's a misdemeanor. Yeah. It's good. My wife and I have been married for a long time. We both started out, working in restaurants. We never forget how lucky we are to have a long career and a pension and the support of our unions and friends in the business. So I think gratitude brings us back, and there was a time when I was on a bunch of series regular right in a row, and my wife couldn't get arrested. And she'll be the first one to say that. I'm not talking out of school, honey.
I was just going to say. No,
that's
formerly married David Alan Basche.
Right.
Married when he got here. We're not.
And the time of death. No. I'm just repeating her words that she says in public. Is that there was a time where the business didn't know what to do with her, and she was upset about it. And I used to say, I believe in you. Hang in there. I believe in you. You're a great actor. They just don't know where to put you. But I promise you. And I meant it. I believed in her 100%. I still do. And now, she's finished her 7th year on Orange. She's on Better Things, The Deuce. She's everywhere. It's easier to talk about what shows she's not on.
Right.
She's everywhere. And although I feel perfectly happy doing some of these guest stars and producing and doing other things, now I'm not on a show, and people don't recognize me on the street, and they stop her everywhere we go. Right, so it's a juggling act.
Up and down,
And I know it will swing back again, and I would like it to swing where it's both of us on shows and having fun and doing work we like to do and getting some notice for it, and so it's a good thing. It takes some work and it takes some appreciation of the other person and where they're at and where you used to be at and how they might be feeling, and I think it's just about. Like everything else, it's just about compassion and gratitude.
You guys work together. This may be misquoting on my part. Together for the first time on Egg, right?
I was say I'll correct you if it's something good. I'll let it slide.
Not talking about those tapes. No.
Not
those.
No,
Egg.
Good.
The movie
yes,
Egg.
Yeah. There's several. No. Sorry. Well, it wasn't our first time working together. We had worked together on a bunch of different things. We did a lot of theater together coming up. When I was on Starter Wife, she came on and did the episode of Starter Wife. When I was on The X's, she came on and did The X's. She was on Better Things. I came on and did Better Things. Like, you know, so
you guys were kind of piggybacking.
We try to help each other. You know, nepotism is awesome. So we worked together before, and we worked together in film as well. Alicia produced a film called Equity, a female-based Wall Street thriller, and I was a producer on that as well. She was my boss, which was terrible.
I was going to say, that must have been made for a fun home life.
Won't do that again.
Yeah.
But what, honey? No, it was fine. It was fine.
She's already packing her bags. You can say whatever you want now.
That's
now
right.
You're good.
And then we kind of did sort of say we wouldn't do that again. And then Egg came our way, and we said, we got to produce this. And we did that with a woman named Michelle Gainless, who used to be the president of Comedy Central for more than a decade, and a spectacularly intelligent person, and just knows everyone in entertainment. And I learned a lot from her and had a good time working with her as a producer. So the three of us were equals on the film. And you know, Equity we sold to Sony Pictures Classics, and at Sundance, and then Egg premiered at Tribeca as a spotlight film at Tribeca, and is now out in the world, distributed with Gravitas and ACI internationally. So really lucky. A lot of people make a movie, and it sits on a shelf and never goes anywhere. So, yeah.
How did you deal with the negative aspects of an acting career in terms of whether you didn't get a role that you really wanted and you thought you were right for, whether it was somebody basing you getting a job on your looks, you know, not necessarily your talents, or you know what I mean? Like, how do you guys navigate that, or just you?
Yeah, you know, the rejection's the biggest negative. Not a lot of negatives. I mean, the rejection, if you don't quickly learn not to take it personally, it can beat you down. Yeah. It really can. And look, I have my days where I'm like, you know, but at this point I've learned I don't pull my hair out about why they didn't choose me. They either choose me or they choose someone else. The role is meant to go to me, or it's meant to go to someone else. And a lot of times it's a friend of mine, which is great. The other biggest negative is having to look for work as a full-time job and not being able to control the situation, right? And I think people would admit, everyone would admit, no matter what career they're in, that's the biggest challenge, is you can't control it. Right, absolutely. Even the stuff you think you're controlling, you're not in control. Now, for us, there's no structure, there's no office we go to every day, there's no 401k, so it's a little, you know, when you're an artist, there's a lot less structure. And just like a dancer or a painter, or, you know, if you get involved with a company, which is great to be involved with a theater company, or, you know, that's fantastic. But that other negative is the uncertainty. And that, I deal with that by drinking heavily. And it's not true. In moderation.
100%. I was in moderation. I'll link the TMZ.
And that's actually not, that's actually not so funny, because that's how a lot of people do deal with it. Yeah. You know, and that makes me sad. That makes me want to help them. And it is tough. Rejection is tough, and uncertainty is tough. And I try as best I can not to medicate myself, and instead to find hobbies, things I like to do that are not acting. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and my wife is a spectacular mother, and I think I'm a pretty damn good dad, and that's a job that I take far more seriously than actor. Yeah. So
your daughter's the next guest. She's going to come and tell you what you really are like as a father.
Yes, ice cream. Yes to the ice cream. Yes to the ice cream. Every day ice cream. So I think dealing with the negatives, you know, part of it is the rejection. You can't take it personally, and part of it is the uncertainty, and you have to cultivate other interests, and you have to, you know, go with the flow.
When you were younger, did anyone take you under their wing and have you paid it forward by doing it with somebody else that you've been working with so much?
That's a great question. Yes, and yes. When I was first starting out, actually, a woman named Holly Lebed, who I knew from my hometown, like from the Jewish Community Center musicals, like
Nana
Oliver. And
Nanette Hamelfar from
yeah,
Scarsdale.
Nana, that's right. That's right, pretty much. I remember I was just graduating from Emerson, and I was planning to move to New York City, and I bumped into her like in our hometown pharmacy, you know, little mom and pop shop, Liggett's drugstore and pharmacy in West Hartford, Connecticut. It's not there anymore.
I was gonna say,
and she said, you know, I work for a big agent in New York City. Like, you should really look me up when you get there. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. But then I did, and she said, let me get you some auditions. We'll freelance. And she was great. And she gave me a lot of good advice, which was fantastic. Someone else who really helped me was Brian O'Neill, who's still in the business and wrote a number of spectacular books about acting as a business. And he really helped me know that it's not called show, it's called show business. And unless you follow through with people like it's a business, you're leaving money on the table. You know, you can, I think that helped me a lot to think of it as a business. And I hope I've paid it forward. I mean, for many years now, I've been coming to the Emerson College Showcase in New York City, and before they had one, I encouraged them to have one, just like Juilliard and Yale and everybody else has one. And so they said, well, okay, we'll have one. That's them. They're just setting up. Yeah.
This is the horror movie. We're setting up the set. That's why we're in a basement down in Lower Manhattan.
I'll start walking backwards.
Yeah.
And so I go every year. I try to bring my agent or bring an assistant or a manager or someone. And for many years, I've been mentoring students from Emerson and anyone who graduates from Emerson and the acting department who emails me and says, "Can I buy you a cup of coffee and ask you questions?" The answer is yes.
That's awesome.
So, and it's fun. That helps me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You and your wife are also into doing charitable work too. Is that not correct? Well, I mean, or use your platform for
Who wants to do good?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
It's like nailing Jello to a tray at this point.
Yes. In the current climate, it's very difficult. Yes, she's my. I have to give credit. Alicia is my my activist inspiration. You know, my guru about all things eco-friendly and charitable. And although I grew up with my mom always telling me, you know, you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. You always have to put yourself in someone else's shoes and try to understand what they've been through. And if you can help them. If they're less fortunate, then you help them. So I credit my mom for that. But Alicia is tireless in her desire to make the world a better place. And everything from, we try to work in soup kitchens when we can, not as often as I'd like, but sometimes with Food Bank, which is a great organization, especially up in Harlem where we live. And right now we're helping a family, a woman who fled Mexico with her children, fearing that her abusive husband would kill them all. Although Jeff Sessions says violence against women is not a reason for asylum.
Right. I was going to just say it might be safer there than they are here.
It's amazing how hard it is for someone to start new in this country. And personally, I believe come in and get started at a better life. I'm not interested in a wall. And this has really opened my eyes. She has 5 kids, and we've been trying to help her find a place to live and healthcare and any city services that could help. Schools, the kids are smart and sweet, and she wants to work. She's raring to go. But she came out of an ICE detention center, and it wasn't an easy journey. And Alicia's journey on Orange is the New Black, especially on season 7, has a lot to do with ICE. And I think that really motivated her. And when friends said, "Hey, we have this opportunity to tangibly help someone,
right.
Not just write a check or go to a gala or something," we jumped. Yeah, and that's been really. I'm very grateful for that opportunity to be of service.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do in this day and age, and
Well, also
it fulfills you as much as your career would.
yes, much
if
more,
not more.
much more, and it reminds us that we're not so important. We're just everybody's just trying to get by. Everybody's just trying to get along, you know.
I'll email that snippet all around the world to everyone.
Perfect.
You have McConnell's email address?
Yes. Perfect. Yes. As we speak, I think that the idiot in chief is in Long Island, trying to raise money, and you know,
he's on a treadmill at an Equinox.
With a Big Mac and a Diet Coke.
With a Chick-fil-A sandwich and a.
That's right.
Before this devolves any further.
Yes, please. Enough about politics. What do you think of my work? Yes.
Your work is fantastic, which is why I brought you in here.
It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, you too. I really appreciate you taking the time to come down and meet me, and love to do it again.
Happy to do it.
Yeah,
For
awesome.
the 6 people who watch it and comment, you know, be kind.
That's even if it's me making up
Never
some
read the
screen
comments.
names.
Never read the comments.
I never do. Thanks so much, David.
All right, thanks.